Hi, welcome. It's Prema, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Very special episode for you today. And look, we're feeling it. The old ways of expressing our truth no longer resonate in so many ways. And the strategies that once brought you success now possibly aren't working, or they feel hollow. They just aren't aligned. You know, you're evolving. Things are shifting, things are changing. And it's not a breakdown, it's actually a breakthrough. Jupiter has just entered Gemini in Vedic astrology, and it's time to amplify your voice, align with your true Dharma. Dharma means purpose, and that is the first pillar in the sacred wealth code system. Purpose, knowing your big why. And look, it's a shift to really step into. It's going to empower you. It's one to grow with. It's not something to brace against. This is for the next 12 months. So May 2025 through to June 2026. The way we think, speak, and share our message is being rewired. And if you felt the pull to teach, to connect, to pivot your path, your business, this is your moment. This is the time. We're going to talk about what this means for you, for your work, and the way your voice reaches the world. This is a very special episode. It is going to be highly relevant for the next 12 months, anytime you're listening to this. And a special episode in that I'm really focusing on this one astrological transit because Jupiter is shining its grace, it's shining its blessings on us for a 12-month period of time, somewhere in the heavens, which is somewhere in your Vedic astrology chart, ruling a particular house in your chart that affects three other areas of life, possibly planets too, but I'm not reading your personal chart. I'm talking about the collective themes. But where we have more light, we have more grace. We can see more, we can make more conscious choices. And that's why this is such an important transit. And again, Vedic astrology, we're looking at the sidereal zodiac, the true placement of the planets, where the planets actually are if you look through a telescope. So I'm super excited to bring you all this information today. So stay tuned, and we'll have some soul wisdom questions and a process at the end to help you to embody all the information. I work on 4 levels. Yes, on the soul intuitive level, and I use the astrology to help with that. Then we connect with ourselves, our hearts, and get into our own self trust, our own intuition and truth. Then we come down and we work through what we need to. We break through the barriers so that we can then take the intention of our soul and bring it down to the soles of our feet and actually come into embodiment. And that's where we do bring strategy in, but strategy that comes from our soul, not strategy just from the outside in. I want to remind you that if you want to ask questions, that you can absolutely call in. The number is on your screen if you're watching live, and it is 866 451 1451. If you have questions that you would rather write to me, or subjects or ahas or anything like that, or you're listening to this afterwards, then send them to Ask Prema at Solutionary. That's SOULUTIONARY, that you're going to find here with this episode wherever you're tuning into it. All right, let's dig in. So, this is the year of really expanding your communication, your voice, and your message. Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, Dharma. Dharma is the Sanskrit word for purpose. Expansion and blessings has just moved into the mercurial sign of Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the communicator in the sacred wealth code system. And this is really bringing a shift from the earthly, sort of slow building energy of Taurus to this airier, sort of idea rich atmosphere. Jupiter has been in Taurus for the last 12 months, and it's moving, and it's just moved as we speak on the 14th of May into Gemini. Now, Jupiter stays somewhere for a year's period of time, and it shines its blessing there for that year's period of time. In Vedic astrology, Gemini is a dual sign, and it's ruled by Mercury, the communicator, but also by the merchant. This is very much of a business placement, and it really governs our communication, our learning, our curiosity, and our adaptability. You can't really put your finger on a bead of Mercury, and it rules business, commerce at all levels. Jupiter is here, and it brings a surge of intellectual growth, spiritual questioning, and the need to find coherence through the chaos. This is a sharing of ideas. This is a lot of information that is going to come to the surface. A lot of truth will come to the surface because Jupiter, our great sage, our great teacher, really is interested in what's true and interested in the deeper meaning of things. I'm going to give you some dates. So this transit will be here May 14th through to June 1st, 2026. There'll be a short time where Jupiter moves into Cancer and then retrogrades back into Gemini. And when planets do this, that they kind of go into the next sign and they give us a little glimpse of, oh, this is what's going to potentially be happening, and then they retrograde back and then move forward months later into that particular sign. And especially with this kind of a transit, you can think of it like, okay, you're going to take this really important trip or a fun trip, and you've got it planned months in advance. And then you get to have a very short trip before the big trip, going, say, maybe you're going to Hawaii or maybe you're going to Italy. I'm disclosing some of my favorite places. And so you go on this short trip. And when you're there, you see, oh, wow, this is different than I thought. And I really wish I would have brought this or planned this other event. Okay. So now it retrogrades back, you go back home. And when you go on the trip, when Jupiter next year comes into Cancer, you will have a glimpse now and a knowing of some of the things that you do want to be prepared for. So this retrograde action is always giving us an opportunity to sort of reevaluate things, get a sneak peek and then reevaluate and then do it again. So just have the dates on that. But if you watch my regular astrology updates, if you tune into the podcast, I will always talk about these things as they're emerging so you don't have to get bogged down with things. But planning on these big transits is absolutely useful. So it'll retrograde. Well, actually, let me jump back here. So Jupiter will be in Cancer it'll be in Gemini until October 18th. From October 18th, 2025 to December 6th, it'll be in Cancer. It's going to go retrograde on November 27th, and then it'll go direct on March 10th. And so the bulk of this transit is in Gemini. So that is where my focus is for us in Gemini. Now, you have Gemini for all of us is collectively the third house of the astrology. Now, the third house is our courage, it is our communication, it is siblings or friends, kind of on that sibling kind of level, because this is also where a bit of competition, like with our siblings, our close friends, they help us to round our corners off. If you think of like sharp pebbles and they're tumbling in the water and then eventually they get rounded off on the edges. Well, as we bump up against one another, we get a little more of a reflection of who we are or how we need to shift and change in order to be with others. So that's part of the energy here as far as the third house goes, but it's also in Gemini, which is very much around our communication, our sharing of ideas, our networking, our connecting through the mental realm, through the intellectual and perceptual realm. In fact, in your sacred wealth code, if you have the word perceptual or intellectual in front of one of your archetypes, then you have that archetype in Gemini. So if you don't know what your sacred wealth code is and you want one of your archetypes for free, you can take the sacred wealth code quiz. You'll find that here with the episode. And if you'd like to really go deep into your sacred wealth code, then you'll want to book a sacred wealth code reading with me. So Jupiter represents our inspiration, our purpose, our Dharma, our direction in life, and the deeper meaning, not just where we're going, not just the bigger vision, because Jupiter is also very much a visionary, but Jupiter represents that deeper meaning. Jupiter wants to know, like, okay, what's really going on here? Why does this matter? Remember, purpose is our big why for anything, why we're doing something, our big purpose in our life, in our service, in our relationships. It helps us to interpret what we're seeing, hearing, and experiencing into a larger understanding. Jupiter, as the visionary, is really looking for what is the big picture. The big picture. And when we understand the big picture, then we're more connected into what's happening and why it's happening. And therefore, we're able to move through some of the minutia, some of the details, or choose a different path because it either makes sense or it doesn't make sense. It resonates or it doesn't resonate with the deeper purpose. Jupiter really transforms the I believe energy, like I believe in this, and it does rule our beliefs, but it translates that into and transforms that into I know. Like, what do you really know? So reflect on something for a moment, something that like you really know, like you know is true. It might be about what you know is true about the nature of the universe, the way things work, about relationships, an individual, around the collective, a spiritual truth, something that you really know. And then think back to there might have been a time before you really knew it that you believed that it was true, but you didn't necessarily like know it in your bones. And you might have also, and I've had this happen to me so many times where I thought, okay, I know, like I know the principles of conscious creation. I know we have to have a clear intention and we need to marry that with the heart and our frequency. And in that, open up to our receiving. And we need to be clear about that and clear our path. Well, there was a time I believed that. And then there was a time that I've known that because I've practiced it and I've walked that path. It's a daily practice for me. But there'll be many days where I thought, like I thought I knew, but now I'm like, oh, now I know because I can feel it. Like there is no other explanation. So Jupiter helps us to bring in that deeper trust, that deeper knowing. And when we have that, we don't get so caught up in the chitta is the Sanskrit word, and this little things that are coming and going in the ego, the mind, and the stuff that happens with others that's just kind of like noise on the surface. We're able to stay true to our mission. So Jupiter governs our spiritual intelligence, our capacity for wisdom. And again, that's very much the sage energy. And let's think about what wisdom is. You've probably heard me say this. It's a deep, not just belief, but a knowing of mine because I've watched it play out so many times. So, wisdom is knowledge experienced. You may have information, you may have knowledge about something, but when you've gone through what you've gone through in your life, and if you look back at some of the things that you've moved through, hmm, and now because you've lived it, and you know what you would do, what you wouldn't do. You've had that experience, that knowledge, you've experienced it. Now you can make different choices. You can apply that wisdom. And it's so important to be able to connect with the depth of things and the wisdom and the ability to really find the coherence in life. How does things fit together? How to, again, then we get into deeper meaning. And if we have meaning, we have purpose. And if we have purpose, it will pull us forward. We will get out of bed and we will remember why the heck we are doing what we are doing, or why we are up against what we're up against and willing to do what we need to in order to shift. So, like in Ayurveda, Ayurveda comes from the Vedas, like Vedic astrology, the Sanskrit word is Jyotish, comes from the Vedas. These are 6,000-year-old plus texts from India, spiritual texts. So Ayurveda translates into the science of life. Jyotish, Vedic astrology, translates into the science of light. We are reading the light, not the dark. We have enough darkness, but we're reading the light. So Jupiter functions on a spectrum from depletion versus excess. And Ayurveda functions on this depletion versus excess. So we're finding the equanimity, finding the balance. So in depletion, we have difficulty seeing the big picture. Just notice, are you in any of these now? Is this up for you? Have you been having a hard time seeing the bigger picture? And this could just be in an area of life, because I guarantee you, if you've been having struggles in your work, what you're putting out in the world, the way you're doing it, in the position, the professional position you're holding, in your relationships. Like if you've been having, difficulty there, it's hard to see the big picture. You get stuck down in the minutia of things, or loss of meaning or purpose. Often after a trauma or some kind of just a prolonged period of confusion, lack of clarity, or emotional fog and detachment from your spiritual perspective. That's depletion. So notice if you identify yourself in any of the depletion. Okay, nobody right, nobody wrong. Remember that. It's really important to know where we're at in order to know where we're going. So I live in the Seattle area, and if I'm going to New York and I'm putting in the coordinates from LA, I'm not going to get to New York very easily. Got to be really truthful. Where are you at? So, noticing what's not working is not a bad thing. It's good information to have. And then, if you're in excess, you're over interpreting mundane events. That's what Jupiter will do. It'll over interpret things. Like try to see meaning in everything. Okay, that person stepped off the curb and almost stepped in front of my car. Oh my God, the mailman, whatever. Are you over interpreting things? Too much mental energy. Seeing symbols or omens everywhere. Pulling out your pendulum for absolutely everything. Every dream has got to have a significant meaning, a missed appointment, whatever it is. Confusing imagination with true intuition or guidance. This is when you're in excess with Jupiter. And true mastery of Jupiter lies in the discernment of knowing when and if to apply your insight or your wisdom. Not just how, but when and if. Because you might have a deep insight about something for yourself, for somebody else. But is that really yours to share at that particular time? Is it time to sink into the deeper wisdom of something, or is it time just to get the task done? So this is some of the things that we grapple with Jupiter. So it highlights where you're meant to grow wiser, not just collect more information. Information is more on the realm of Mercury, and Mercury is the great communicator and merchant, and Gemini is a very information-based sign. Let me back up. Nothing wrong with information. Really good information to have. I'll say it all the time. And we have too much information. So our circuits are jammed. We don't have enough quiet time. We don't tend to allow ourselves those gaps so that we can actually hear our own inner voice. Just there's so much information available to us and coming at us all the time. And just because you have information does not mean you can apply it. So therefore you don't have wisdom. I work with a lot of conscious leaders, and one of the biggest gaps that I see is the gap between what you know and what you've embodied, who you're being and what you're actually putting into action through you, through your gifts. You may know, say, the astrology timing I'm talking about, but are you bringing it down to a practical application? And that's why I'm so passionate about giving you ways to embody the energetics of who you are and your gifts and get past what's holding you back. We have too much information. I would just say right now with this, you're going to need to be careful, and we'll get into these shadow things, but you're going to need to be careful about taking on too much information. So be very selective. Is this information worth my energetic currency? Because basically you're opening up and you're feeding it your energetic currency. So just be aware of that. Jupiter holds the energy of wisdom and belief and philosophy and religion and law, the big picture, and like we've been talking about, meaning, expansion in general, optimism, but also greed, overexpansion, and bypassing. So those are some of the things we need to watch out for. Now, we're taking that great energy of Jupiter and we're playing it out in Gemini. This is media, literature, communication, freedom of speech, technology and innovation, very much so. We're going to see that really explode with Jupiter in this area on a collective level. We'll also see our freedom of speech. There'll be shifts. Jupiter is going to want to break through some of the barriers and bring some truths to the surface so that we are reclaiming that freedom of speech, but it's going to want to do it in a way that it's applying wisdom, not force. Mars is force. And this Gemini is very much about thinking in ways that challenge tradition. It's innovative, new in different ways, but it comes from thought. You are going to want to mentally connect with others and network and speak and what you're taking a stand for and your message and speaking. There's another level that's coming through you that Jupiter wants to infuse your communication with. You will desire to connect in with others. And I encourage you to do that. And I'll get down more into that. But you will have to be aware again of, where is it useful to put my energy? Who is it useful for me to connect with? And maybe not, because information for information's sake you'll spend some of that energetic currency you have for a day. Like, say you have $100 worth of energetic currency in a day, and you've got to spend it to take care of yourself and do your work and take care of your kids and feed yourself, and then finance the fears you already know you have, and then finance the ones that you aren't aware of. And then you're constantly feeding your energetic currency to different information or connecting with people. And is that actually adding to you or depleting you? Jupiter is going to is in Gemini now, and it moved from Taurus. Now, Taurus, the previous transit, was really growth through patience and stability and tangible outcomes, which is, Jupiter's not 100% comfortable there. And we're moving into the current transit, which is through growth, curiosity, communication, and flexibility. And actually, I want to highlight curiosity. That's one thing that you should write down and keep in front of you through this next year. And it's always a good thing to have. But instead of, how curious can you be? Instead of always holding on to your beliefs, get curious. And in your conversations, get curious. There's a lot of new things coming to the surface. And if we're curious, we're asking good questions, we're listening. There's a part of ourselves that is open to what's new instead of hanging on to what has been. The collective and personal shifts, you're going to experience increased desire to learn new things. But again, is this in alignment with you? Depending on the house it truly is in your chart, then you'll want to learn new things around some particular subjects for, there's a collective theme of business, but if you're a Virgo ascendant like I am, you're going to be really wanting to learn new things about business, but you could eat up all your time if you are learning everything instead of really focused on how does that serve you? Is that in alignment with your purpose and your message and what you're bringing forth? You'll be more interactive and engaging in teaching and sharing. And we teach through our sharing. And you have something to teach. We all have that's another one of Jupiter's archetypes, the teacher. To know is to grow. We all have a teacher within us somewhere. So you'll find yourself doing that, expanding your networking and connection building. You'll be saying yes to things around networking, and I would encourage you to do that. You just need to weigh, does it feel like, there's some juice in this for me? This is a very innovative time, and you'll want to have multi-perspective thinking, not just linear thinking. That's where we metaphorically sit in the seat of another and another and another and look at things from different angles, because a different perception gives us different information. So some of the opportunities with Jupiter and Gemini is explosive ideas and like the mental stimulation we've been talking about, and enhanced communication. But that includes your writing, your media visibility. So if you have been wanting to get the written word out there, or start writing for yourself and then put it out there, whether it's a book, whether it's a blog, social media, whatever it might be. This is your communication coming through the writing form, through the spoken word, and through however you want to choose to use media visibility. This is going to really be a powerful time for you, your voice, and your message to get out through these different outlets. So if you have been wanting to do that, if you're feeling the pull, then do it. If you've got a block to that around your visibility and being seen, we have a whole module on that in Sacred Wealth Mastery. You'll want to break past that because this is a prime time to really elevate that part of yourself. And whatever it is that you're taking a stand for in the world, whatever you're consciously leading, there needs to be some visibility. And there'll be a desire to understand the complexity of systems and diverse viewpoints. And that understanding gives us a deeper meaning. Look, it's important that there are diverse viewpoints. In the Vedic astrology chart, you and the partner that most resonates with you is across the zodiac. So if you are a Libra ascendant, then Aries is the seventh house of partnership. There's a reason for that. Otherwise, we have a more narrow view of the world. But you're going to watch out for the mental scatter and overstimulation that Gemini can bring. And if you've got that, then you'll have a difficulty in staying focused and grounded amidst all this variety. You'll just be skipping over the surface from one thing to another instead of having a nice, deep, focused groove. If you're playing a good old vinyl record and it's a nice, clean one with no scratches, and that needle sinks deep and the sound comes so clear. But if you've got a bunch of scratches, it doesn't sound so good and it skips all over the surface. It's important that we are able to move forward, and we've got to have focus in order to move forward. So going to have to modulate how much information that we actually take in, or we won't be able to focus. So some of the really important themes for you as a soulful entrepreneur and leader is watching this information overload and balancing that with your inner clarity. The mind will be busier than ever. So with so much data and stimulation coming, discernment becomes the spiritual practice. So in order to discern things, you'll want to step back, have a quiet time, do your meditation, those walks in nature, and allow yourself to just contemplate and discern what information is yours to move with. If you weigh the information that you're entertaining or contemplating against, is this in alignment with my purpose? You'll have a very good barometer on whether it's useful for you. And that's not to say that we can't have just entertaining information. You want to bracket that time. I actually allow myself, I take in a lot of information as well, but I need to stay clear and focused. So if I'm going to listen to, say, podcasts for entertainment value, I tend to do that on the weekend when I'm gardening or doing chores or something. There's ways to bracket those times of just playing with different information just for the sheer play and enjoyment of it. But you've got to give yourself some quiet time. That's the biggest remedy you're going to hear me say this year. And I'm a big one for this, is like turn everything off so you know what your own intuition and thoughts are saying. Okay. Choose what you tune into and how you process it. You're going to experience communication upgrades. You're being called to refine your message. And this is really important because we evolve and our message needs to evolve with us. Whether you have your own business or not, you have a message. There's a loud and clear message that is either coming through you or wants to come through you. And sometimes you start to hear your message and you realize, wow, that doesn't sound like me anymore. Clear, truthful speech will become your superpower. And it's such a powerful time to teach, to write, to speak, and to share ideas with integrity, But the key here is to have it be very clear. So you have to have that discernment, and you have to also be clear about, what are my gifts? What is my message? that's wanting to come through me at this time? What really is that? There'll be a rebirth or a birth of your teaching voice. So if you have felt a little silenced, this transit's going to help you to reclaim your authority and become a guide in your niche or in your community. You will be able to sort of wrap your energy and your mental energy, but your embodiment around your ideas. And it's like you won't be able to help but to speak about them. So you want to give yourself forums to do that. You want to allow yourself to have this evolving sort of teaching voice, to give it some airtime. So you may be, again, writing, speaking, recording. And if you're not sure sometimes around, okay, well, how is my message wanting to come through my niche differently or speak to my community? Sometimes recording yourself is great. Just let yourself riff without the pressure of anybody else so you can allow that voice to come through. And writing for some of you will work really well. You will have the opportunity for more networking for purpose, networking for Dharma, collaborations, group teachings, partnerships, and this will expand, but only when you align your path with your values. So if you're aligned with your values, then you're going to align with others who have similar values as well. So there'll be an opportunity for collaborating, for group teaching. You may be asked to come into somebody else's group and share your knowledge, your wisdom, your gifts. You may invite people in to your company, to your business, to the community that you're chairing, whatever it might be. And we have, a lot to learn from each other. And there's absolutely instances where we are very much better together. We can shine brighter together. Use curiosity before certainty. Let your questions lead the way. Let your questioning come, though, from curiosity, not from, okay, I was going to say not from challenging the status quo, but yeah, it's okay to challenge the status quo. I do it all the time. But allow there to be an energy of curiosity. And what I mean by curiosity before certainty is that if we are certain, we've closed the door, no more ideas, information, perception is coming in. If we're curious, the door is still open and we may see things or see things in a different way that we hadn't before. This is super important. And this is what this transit really wants for us. So this is a 12-month period to really explore, to edit, and to evolve, not necessarily to finalize or perfect. Mercury is a very process-oriented planet, and so is Mercury's signs. We want to process things, want to roll the stones over, check and make sure we've seen all sides of things. Very process-oriented. So let's talk about some of the things that, as conscious entrepreneurs and leaders, that sometimes can get in the way and how we want to work through this. So we've touched on this already, but overthinking versus soul clarity. This is such a big one, and this is going to be front and center for you. I will remind you of this. We'll be talking about this all year. Maybe you're overwhelmed by information and unsure which voice is your own. You're going to face this more than one time. And you've probably already been facing this because we've been so saturated in information. So how do we discern our intuitive truth from the noise and create from soul clarity instead of mental clutter? Okay, in order to do this, again, we've got to pull away. In all my meditations, in all my trainings, there is a drop into the heart where we can hear our own soul voice. And at the end, there's always a tuning into an inspired action. And sometimes we do that right here on this podcast. So That is because we want to get the intuitive hit first, the soul guidance first, and then we want to apply it into how we're going to move forward with it. But if you're thinking about it and you're stuck in the thinking mind and you're weighing different possibilities, one of the biggest clues here, you're asking outside of yourself, or you're searching outside of yourself online, or you're questioning it with AI. And I don't have anything against AI used responsibly, but don't let that hijack your ability to tune in and use your intuition, because it is a muscle and you want to exercise it. So if you are feeling overwhelmed by information, you need to pull away. You need to tune in. That can be a walk in nature. That can be just a meditation. That can be having some quiet time, in the garden. It might be reading something too. That might work for you as well. But you've got to, I like the regular, I'm all about regular practice. Okay. If we practice the foundation again and again and again, then we don't get caught in these uh, shadow patterns as much. So build some quiet time into your life, and also build some time to tune into your intuition. That can be through meditation, that can be quietly just sitting and asking for guidance. Okay. The next one is our silenced voice versus our authentic expression. So you may have been holding back in your message, unsure how to say what's really true for you. This is a big one, I think, that's really activated currently because there's so much polarity in the collective, and we're going to see more polarity through ideas and communication. And when we when there's so much coming at us, again, it is sometimes hard to give voice to your message on what's really, really true for you if you haven't landed in the truth. Now, Jupiter, the great sage, is going to help us to land more in that truth so we can speak from that clarity. But you know how it is when you're unsure about something. You're like, oh, and you're talking to so and so, and is it this? Is it that? And, you're bouncing it off of everybody. But when you know it's true and you can speak from that well within you, and that's what you want. So, this is a time to reclaim your teaching voice, to refine your message and speak with clarity and power. In order to speak with the clarity and power, take the time to get really clear on what are you taking a stand for in your business. What is your message? If again you don't have a business, you still have a message in your profession. And and if you are raising children, you're not having a business or professional right now, you still have a message. These are the codes that you live by, and you want to support others in living by them too. But you've got to have the clarity in order to feel powerful with it. So you've got to take the time to get clear, and then you'll feel like you've got this place to move from. And then there's scattered effort versus aligned dharma. Dharma is purpose. So if you're doing too much, or you're doing the wrong things because you're unclear on what aligns with your deeper mission, this is where you're going to feel very scattered in your effort. You're going to be like a floodlight as opposed to a laser beam. A laser beam can be seen for far. It's like that focus far and goes for a longer trajectory. And a floodlight, you've kind of gone wide and you're scattered, a little bit unsure. There's lack of clarity there. Again, we've got to quiet down the noise. You need to know what your gifts are. If you know what your gifts are, your sacred wealth code gives you your gifts, then you are connected with your purpose and your prosperity, and you're very clear about what actually aligns with your mission. Now, you're evolving, so that changes over time, the way you express your gifts and what your deeper mission is. So you need to give yourself some time to sink into that and really understand that. In Sacred Wealth Mastery, we have a whole module on purpose and mission for that reason. And people go back and do it at different times as things within them shift. So, how do you recognize your purpose aligned opportunities and say yes to only what supports you? Is you need to know, let me finish that, supports you in your soul's purpose and your timing, and knowing your chart. And if you really want to know how all this is working for you, you want to book a reading with me. that's what you want to do. And we'll talk about not only Jupiter, but your purpose and the major transits and how that correlates to your birth chart and what's being called from you now for your divine timing. But if it's not a big yes, then it's a no. What I mean by that is that you need to be clear enough to allow yourself to ask the question, is this in alignment? Is this a big yes for me? Is it in alignment with my purpose? Is it in alignment with where I'm going? Or is it just a big yes? Like a big yes is like got some excitement. You'll feel it in your body. It might be a whole body yes. You might feel it in your core. You might feel it in your sacrum. You might feel it in your heart. Like, oh, but you feel it in some level. But if you're like, I don't know, that's not a big yes. And that needs to be a no. And if you give yourself space for it to be a no, then you may come to a yes. Or maybe it stays a no. You've said yes to something else when you say no to the thing that's in front of you. You've made space. We're going to talk about some of the archetypes here, but I want you to reflect for a moment, and then we'll go into the soul wisdom questions. I want you to reflect for a moment back to this transit happened the last time every 12 years from the end of May 30th, 2013 to June 2014. What was going on for you? What's going on for you in your business and your communication, some of the themes we're talking about, because history doesn't repeat itself, but it also rhymes. It usually has a rhythm, and we come around to similar cycles again and again, but we get to apply the wisdom that we've learned. So, what was going on for you during that time? Because it's an indicator of some of the themes you may be working through. And then before that, it was June 15th, 2001 to July 4th, 2002. So, it's very interesting. Like, if I reflect back on this, the last cycle, stopped seeing, I was seeing some clients in person. I was also doing some work with couples, and I was teaching a tiny bit of yoga. I was doing this work and I was doing the Sacred Wealth Code work and all, and I had my online, but I really took a shift in my business, and this hits me in the house of career, to greater visibility. I moved more online. I started holding telesummits. I started being on other people's interviews. I started to grow an email list more so. I started to be out invisible online, and my business grew tremendously during that time. I launched my first group program after holding a lot of private clients to help them. I actually have a couple clients that came in to work with me during 2014 and are still working with me because we evolve over time and the work evolves as well. This, if I go back another 12 years, that's when I opened my yoga center, was the July of 2002. So I felt that expansion through that period of time. I rented a big building, I did all the things, built it out, and I opened the yoga center. A big expansion. So this was expansion in business and career, and I was more visibly seen. So again, I'm going into another time of this, but I'm so well aware of what I'm going into. And I have made some shifts and changes over the last 6 months to accommodate the growth my soul is asking for. So this is the way we work with divine timing. What was going on for you? What are the themes? And if you start learning from those themes, how can that inform, like, what's the knowledge you gained? Okay, I gained not over expanding from the yoga center. And that was one of the shadow patterns. There's a lot of great things that happened in the second cycle and in that first cycle that I was just talking about. But what's the wisdom going forward? For me, it's always about alignment. Just, it is not my job to do anybody else's work. It's my job to do my work and what my soul's calling me to. Okay. And I'm also looking at a cycle that's coming up in divine timing 2 years from now. And I'm preparing for that as I build the next cycle of things. So curious what's happening for you and what you're noticing. Now, the visionary, one of Jupiter's archetypes here. This is the archetype of expansive wisdom and vision. It brings that big picture insight and bold ideas for collective good. So, this is one of the ways Jupiter's will be working for us. But just notice how this touches you. Like, what is the big idea that you have for the collective good? I take a stand for that. If we all stand in our gifts, our true highest value gifts, our purposeful gifts that are in our soul blueprint, and that's why I created the Sacred Wealth Code, then we are doing what lights us up. And we are not doing everything. And if we're all moving from our highest value gifts, then we create this beautiful tapestry together because we're all meant to do things in our own unique way. We see things from our own unique vantage point, and we gift each other and take a stand in the process and take a stand for what's ours to take a stand for. Brings more harmony, brings more growth. The visionary is here to help you to manifest your future possibilities through communication and through purpose. So tune into your vision if you don't have one already. It offers courage and optimism to step into your next level of expansion. The optimism to see that there's a way and the courage to actually take the steps. But the shadow is you're watching that overexpansion. We've got to watch that overexpansion. If you build the house uh, if you build the house on a foundation that's too weak or isn't big enough for the house you're building, it's going to be overexpansion. It's going to fall over. So you want to actually keep putting the foundation under what it is that you are expanding. You'll need to watch out for your perfectionism and the lack of grounded action because you can get stuck in the vision so much that you don't bring it all the way down to the soles of your feet, like I was talking about, the 4 levels I work on. So that's where taking those inspired actions one step at a time is going to be so useful. So here's our activation prompt for the visionary, and that is, where's your soul asking you to speak a higher vision into form? Not just speak the higher vision, but speak it into form. So just tune into that. And then the communicator, Mercury's archetype, is for our truthful expression. This is channeling clarity, growth through our writing. We've talked about writing, dialoguing, speaking. Words are going to want to join other words in one way or another and connect with people. And if you're a musician, that's also coming in big too. Songwriting, absolutely. Invites you to refine your message and speak from embodied wisdom and encourages mindfulness and discernment in noisy, information-rich world. So again, just pointing us back to that focus on what's for you and not taking too much information, because the shadow side is watching watch the tendency for overwhelm. And if we're overwhelmed, we are worn out at some level and we're not focused. And then we can get blunt and our focus can get very scattered. And if you have a scattered focus, you're not going to move forward. You're just going to sort of stay at the status quo and be confused. We're never really confused. We just aren't settling down into the clarity that we have. And our activation prompt is, what truth do you need to say out loud in order to grow? What truth do you need to say out loud in order to grow? So keep in mind, some of the remedies here are going to be to continue to ground your mind. Keep your mind very grounded. Okay, feet on the ground. Watch out for overstimulation. It is a time when breathing, breath practice, pranayama, journaling, writing, getting your bare feet on the ground, doing yoga, martial arts, exercising in general, intentional periods of silence. This is going to be crucial to ground the mind. Teach what you've lived. That's your wisdom. Your message lands when it's born of your embodiment, the things you have done, not just the ideas that you have right now. Teach from embodiment, from your wisdom. That's your knowledge that you have experienced. So go back and look at your stories. What have you learned yesterday? What did you learn 10 years ago? Teach that. Embrace duality without judgment. Gemini teaches us the opposites coexist. So let that uncertainty soften you and not shut you down. Allow yourself to open up to new information, okay, without the judgment. It's okay if it is true for somewhere else. It doesn't have to be true for you. All right. We're going to communicate to expand. This is really important, very important. So I want to leave you with a soul wisdom question. And that is, what truth have you been holding back that's ready to be spoken? Write that down, take that with you. What truth have you been holding back that is so ready to be spoken? That's for you to explore what your message is and how it's asking you to grow now. We'll be talking about that more in future episodes. And again, if you are wondering, how is this for me? Where is this hitting me? What am I, what's next? Book a reading with me. Okay. You can get a Sacred Wealth Code reading to understand your gifts, where you're stuck in your shadow, and how purpose and prosperity aligns for you. And a soul blueprint reading will give you the whole deal. This little bit will, this transit and how everything's affecting you, your timelines for what's most important for you going forward. And I will be bringing you a workshop very soon, Soul Over Strategy. How do you move from the soul and bring that all the way down through you into a strategy that's uniquely your own? How do you actually move with that? So you can check with the show for links for everything. And of course, my free resources are there as well. You can dive into the Sacred Wealth Code book, the journal, the oracle cards, which are super fun to play with. And I'm here every week. And I love to have you send me your messages, send me your questions, or show up live on one of these calls. And again, the email to send me is down below. It's Ask Prema. So I'm grateful to be here with you. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing this around if it resonates for you. And I look forward to being with you next time.